The 2004 German Grand Prix was met by huge anticipation from an excited Hockenheim crowd. Michael Schumacher was on top form, holding a win streak of 5, and he had pretty much sealed the championship already. Unsurprisingly, Schumacher took pole position on Saturday ahead of Montoya in the Williams. Jenson Button would have lined up third, but he had a 10-place grid penalty for an engine change, hampering his hopes of scoring his long-overdue first-ever victory. RUBENS Barrichello was only 7th in the other Ferrari, and Olivier Panis would start from the pit lane after qualifying an impressive 9th. Another story was the return of Antonio Pizzonia, starting 10th. Ralf Schumacher was still recovering after his monstrous crash at the US Grand Prix, and Marc Genet had been dropped after filling in for 2 rounds, so it was over to Pizzonia to see what he could do. Interestingly, he would also sub for Williams a year later after Nick Heidfeld had a motorbike accident. When the race began, aborted start, never mind. That's Olivier Panis stalling, and that's why he started from the pit lane. Let's try that again, shall we? When the race actually got underway, Montoya was very slow, and Schumacher easily led the race into turn 1. Ugh. Alonso got up into 2nd, followed by Raikkonen, Trulli and Coulthard. It looked like it would be a clean first lap, but Barrichello got greedy into the hairpin and knocked his front wing off on the back of Coulthard's car. Montoya temporarily had 2 wings, granting him double the downforce. Then Raikkonen set up a move on Alonso out of turn 2, although the cameraman decided to cut away from the action to show Barrichello in the pits. Say, what does that remind me of?
What has happened?
And he gets it done up the inside. It's crazy to think that these 2 drivers could still have this battle in F1 15 years later. Not in these positions though, sadly. Now watch this beautiful camera angle with Montoya getting way out of shape over the curb, well held. This was actually the last race the Williams team ran with the distinctive walrus nose, and the change seemed to work because the season improved from here for the team. Talking of Williams, here's Montoya taking Webber for 6th. It's a relatively open and shut case, as Montoya has a significantly faster car. Remember, he was only behind Webber because of his start. At the end of lap 8, Fernando Alonso made a pit stop. Remember, this was back in the day when the drivers used to qualify on their starting fuel, meaning that in order to get a good qualifying position, they used to run late and stop early. Also in was Pizzonia. A lap later, the leader followed suit, and his stop went exactly to plan. Kimi Raikkonen took over the lead, although he too was scheduled to stop soon after. Here's a driver who's about to stop for a very different purpose. Giorgio Pantano has Pantano more air in one of his tyres and will drop to the back. Meanwhile, Montoya was once again charging. The 2003 German Grand Prix winner had caught up to Trulli, and through he went into the hairpin. He overshot it slightly, but the Renault driver was unable to come back through, so job done. Raikkonen had made his pit stop and was catching Schumacher for the effective lead. He got within 1 second and deployed the DRS before forgetting it hadn't been invented yet, which he realised with a race-ending thud. Kimi had lost his chance of getting just his 2nd Grand Prix win through no fault of his own, and he went back to his garage for an ice cream. With the troubles of both Montoya and Raikkonen, it seemed as if the racing gods were demanding a Schumacher home victory. Amazingly, there was no safety car. This was 2004 after all. Pizzonia here did his best at having his own accident though, nearly managed it. Anyway, notice how Button has jumped Trulli in the order there. He's genuinely up to 5th already from 13th on the grid. Jenson was always good at fighting through from low grid positions, as he would show later in his career, although on this day he was really flying. And now he gets Montoya, look! The Williams driver basically gives him the place. Button is 4th. Another driver on a charge was Mark Webber in the Jaguar. Against all odds, he was keeping up with Trulli and actually passing him, albeit briefly, for 6th position. This allowed Takuma Sato to get through, and then he went to 6th, getting alongside Trulli and almost onto the grass as he went through in the braking zone. Now watch Mark Webber as he's going to go for a really late braking manoeuvre, and really well done there into the braking zone. Talking of Webber, if I can talk about something other than this race for a bit, F1 fans who didn't watch the Channel 4 coverage of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix this year really missed out. Webber's reaction to Hamilton's lockup was priceless. Seriously, go look it up. Back to Germany 2004, here's Schumacher's 2nd stop, which went cleanly but allowed Alonso to get temporarily in front. Temporarily being the key word. This was 2004 after all. Fernando would get his time. I tell you what, that Jaguar looks clean. Literally, that's Christian Clean, running 5th before his pit stop. I make no apologies. The cars from 2004 actually were really beautiful in my opinion, a massive improvement from the duller looking cars of the late 90s and early 2000s, and that Jaguar was just the peak. Not long after taking 6th place, Takuma Sato lost it again with a spin through the gravel, luckily avoiding beaching his car or adding to my crunch count. On the other hand, his teammate Button was absolutely flying. After starting 13th, here he was going 3 wide with Alonso and Heidfeld, almost making an important move for 2nd on the Spaniard. Jenson was so fast in 2004, eventually being classified 3rd behind the 2 Ferraris despite having never won a Grand Prix, and I personally feel it was his best year, even including 2009. Look, watch this switchback a lap later when the camera cuts to it. It's another proper attempt as he goes side by side all the way down the straight, through the kink, and very nearly getting Alonso, although he has to hang back into the Mercedes arena to avoid a crash. He's charging. In a situation very familiar to anyone who watched the recent Azerbaijan Grand Prix, there was a scary moment where a left rear tyre let go at high speed, pitching Cristiano Di Matta off the road. Luckily this time he avoided contact with the wall, so there was no red flag or even safety car and the race was allowed to continue. That is, except for Cristiano. Also out of the race went Nick Heidfeld, who almost got wiped out by Fisichella on pit entry. His official cause of retirement was handling difficulties, although that's to be expected when you race a 2004 Jordan. Out in front, Schumacher made his 3rd stop of the day, and it went just as cleanly as the first 2. The 2004 season was utterly crazy in terms of the sheer dominance of Schumacher and Ferrari, who just seemed untouchable providing nothing went wrong, which it usually didn't. It's crazy to think that this is the same team famous for making silly mistakes in the present day and age, because back in the day it seemed that they were perfect, and Schumacher only missed the podium on 3 out of the 17 occasions. At least Alonso and Montoya were providing the excitement, eh? Alonso had pitted once more than Montoya and was heavy on fuel, but that didn't stop the Williams driver from attacking hard, locking up into the hairpin and overshooting it. Montoya then made his stop, and watch this! Incoming! Whoa! Jenson Button briefly led, and after his final pit stop came out an incredible 3rd from 13th on the grid, right behind Alonso and chasing. However, he had a problem. His helmet was coming loose, and the air pressure was forcing it to pull his head upwards on the straights, nearly choking him. Nowadays he's undoubtedly received a black and orange warning flag telling him to come back to the pits, but Jenson raced on stoically, fighting Alonso. What a performance! And here he is side by side with Alonso, with one hand on the wheel and another on his helmet. It looked like he was going to settle for 3rd after the kink, but watch this move up the inside, incredible! Jenson was 2nd with his head almost falling off. Following this, David Coulthard caught Alonso, and he had a chance of getting his first podium in what had so far been a subpar season by McLaren standards. He had an attempt into the hairpin, although Fernando saw him coming and covered him off. The race ended with Schumacher predictably winning in front of his home crowd, one of his proudest days in Formula 1. Jenson Button almost miraculously held on to 2nd place, and Alonso held off Coulthard for 3rd. Further down, Pizzernia scored his first F1 points with 7th place. Funnily enough, he would go on to score points on 3 more occasions in his career, with each being a 7th place for Williams. Guys, before I give this race a score, I want to let you know that I have a Daily Motion account for all the races that get taken down from my YouTube channel by the pesky FOM bots. Due to the high levels of parody, review and education my videos contain, as well as the short lengths of the clips I use, I believe that all of my videos fall under fair use, but sadly this isn't always enough. On my Daily Motion account, you can find the 1996 Monaco and Portuguese Grand Prix, as well as any other video that may end up being taken down from my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Thank you. I gave the Grand Prix a 6.7 out of 10, a number brought down by the lack of championship implications and the straightforward Schumacher victory. I initially scored it a 4.7 out of 10, although I felt that was too low, so I gave it 2 bonus points for the tension of Jenson Button's helmet malfunction, and the feel-good stories of his recovery drive and Schumacher's home victory. I gave the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Jenson Button for his charge up the field, his overcoming of issues, and his amazing overtake on Alonso. I still maintain that this was Jenson's best ever season, beating our even 2009 and 2011. I'll give the NOOOOOO trophy for Worst Driver to Rubens Barrichello for his first lap collision and failure to progress through the order. Look, I'm a fan of Rubens and I think he's great, but P12 in an F2004, seriously? It's worth noting that he limped home with a puncture, but even so, he wouldn't have scored any points. Drive safe guys, and I'll see you next time.